I've built my house painting business, Premium Painting, from $0 to $1 million annual revenue in just under 3 years. And in this video, I'm going to give you the exact roadmap that helped me not only grow the business, but scale it. At this point, we have 15 employees. We're doing a little under 2 million per year. And it's a lifestyle business for me, working under 20 hours per week and also focusing on different passion projects that I have. So if you're just starting out in the house painting business and you want to take your business to extraordinary heights, the principles that I share with you in this video are going to help you to do that. Quick disclaimer, this is a 10-minute video giving you the tools and strategies that I personally used in my house painting business to scale it. If you feel as though you can't sit through this entire video, then scaling a business is probably not for you, because ultimately it requires wanting to learn and putting in the time to know what to do and what not to do in the crazy game of business. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, let me tell you how I got into this business. When I was 13 years old, my father was a journeyman painter. He actually would be painting houses on his own. He was the technician, the owner operator, the person not only answering the calls, doing the estimates, doing the painting, picking up the paint from the paint store. And this is a trap that a lot of painting business owners fall into. This is the trap that you need to avoid if you get into this business. And I'm going to teach you how I did that later in this video. But the reason why I actually started my painting business isn't because I saw my dad struggle. Actually, I wanted nothing to do with the painting business because I saw how hard he had to work. And I realized that ultimately this business seemed like what looked to me as chaos, because ultimately he just didn't own a business. He owned a job. And that was what I saw growing up. But as time went on, I got into sales. I went into college and I really was focusing on getting a business degree. I really fell in love with business. And around 2014, my mother passed away. And ultimately, this was the classic mom and pop story. Mom would do all the paperwork at home and handle all the bills and, even work on some of the marketing. And my dad would do all of the work described earlier on. And what happened was, as soon as my mother passed, he gave up on absolutely everything. He gave up his passion, which was painting, all the great customer service that he had, all of his word-of-mouth customers. He no longer answered the phone. He wanted absolutely nothing to do with living. So at that time, my sister was home and I was like, you know what? I love business. I have a feeling that if I implement the sales strategies that I've learned, the marketing techniques that I've learned through working in various industries like a restaurant, life insurance, car sales, and banking up until that time, then I know for a fact that I can make an impact on this painting industry and really ultimately impact the life of my father, get him off of the couch, get him back into doing what he loves. So ultimately, that's how I got into it. It was a pretty big challenge for me, especially with some of the challenges that my father dealt with addiction during that time. So ultimately it led me to have to kind of just branch out on my own, which I winded up doing because ultimately I quit my bank job, my 9-to-5 bank job, my safe job, making $80,000 a year, ultimately in line for a promotion and maybe even manage a branch. I was on my way up the corporate ladder, full benefits, health insurance, all of the things that, any 22-year-old would be extremely grateful for. But for me, I was more purpose driven. I wanted to help my family. And ultimately, I really wanted to be a business owner. So that's how I got into the painting business. So early challenges. Okay, so there was a course that I took through Eric Barstow's Painting Business Pro. So I'm a big fan of his course. And early on, I really wanted to understand how I could take the subcontractor model that he was teaching and implement it into my new painting business. And so I did that. It seemed pretty easy, right? You would go and sell the jobs and you would ultimately find people who had all the equipment, had all the tools, and you would say, hey, I have a job for you to do. Can you go do this job? And you would take 50% of that for yourself and you'd pay them 50%. Of course, you'd factor in the material cost. And that idea to me was extremely appealing because I didn't know how to paint. So I really needed to make sure that I had people that knew how to paint. And I came across an independent contractor who I wound up doing this exchange with. And we actually made it work, right? So I would find a job and I would say, hey, I have this job. We'd go over the scope of work. He would go and do it. And what I found out is that as time went on, he began to kind of start doing his own thing. He actually would be handing his business card to the customer after the job was done and start building a relationship with them outside of premium painting, which at that time he had the leverage. He knew that I needed him to be doing the painting. He was doing all the work himself. And ultimately, because of that, he felt that he wasn't fairly compensated, which led me to think, you know what? I am not a fan of this independent contractor model. I need employees. So he brought a helper with him one day, and I noticed the work ethic of the helper. And I said, hey, you know what, man? Listen, I'm pivoting away from working with so-and-so, and I'm really looking to build a team. So what I'd like to ask you is if you'd be okay with working for an hourly wage for me full time, and I'm going to actually jump in and do the painting. Me and you are going to be a team, and we're going to build out premium painting together. And that's kind of how it worked. Now, he had adequate painting experience. I had very little painting experience. But what I did was I didn't let that stop me, right? So for me, I thought of this. I worked in the restaurant industry. I knew that a restaurant that has a business owner that doesn't know how to cook is always at the mercy of the chef. And for me, I didn't want that to be the case. I wanted to learn how to paint. And I wanted to learn how to paint in a professional way. So funny story, I'm in the front lawn of a house that we're supposed to paint the outside of, and I'm on YouTube watching Idaho Painter teach me how to turn on a sprayer because that is something that I never had to do. And I pivoted, and I think that's a huge component of leadership, is the ability to pivot, is the ability to take what's handed to you and make something out of it. And that's really the start that I had, and it was extremely challenging. We're selling our painting jobs, we're promising the world to these early customers, and it was me who had no painting experience aside from helping my dad in the summers, just rolling walls and prepping surfaces, and one other individual who really just was a helper of someone that knew how to paint. So, but this pivot of mine was actually really beneficial in the sales side. And the reason why is because I got to see how long things took. And I think as a business owner, if you're starting a painting business, this should be a big focus for you, because if you understand how long things take, that means your estimates are more accurate and you're going to close more jobs, and you can hold your team accountable. For example, if I'm doing a job and I know that, hey, you know what, it takes me 3 hours to roll this room, and I'm working at a good speed, a good pace, and I'm cutting it in, so 3 hours to do the walls in that room. Well, guess what? If someone takes 6 hours, I can audit them and say, hey man, I could do this in 3 hours, and you're doing it in 6. So something's wrong here, right? So again, think of the analogy of a restaurant owner who has a chef in the kitchen, and the chef doesn't show up, right? So what happens? Well, all the people that came in to eat that night aren't going to get the same quality because the owner can't step in. And I wanted to be able to step in, and if I needed to learn how to spray, or if I needed to go and spray something, if I need to go and roll something, if I need to go and brush something, I can do it, and I can prep. To me, honestly, I feel like I'm the best prepper on my entire team. And that's just because that used to be my favorite thing to do. I love the aspect of prepping and the tight corners of the tape. So I became a student of this game. And it only benefited me because my team understood that, hey, Tanner knows what he's talking about, right? And I think when it comes to building an organization of leaders, you need to have adequate knowledge on how to do the thing that you're selling. And it translates in all areas, in sales and marketing, and confidence of your team. So those were the challenges early on, was building the team, trying to figure out, is subs better for me? Is employees better for me? Up until this time, we have nothing but employees. It's actually great. I love it. I would never do it another way. There's always this big argument of subs versus employees. If you're thinking about it, I always advise to go the employee route. But again, you have the issues of hiring. This was a process that I had to learn from scratch, not only just hiring, but hiring people in this sector and identifying different patterns of behavior that people showcase to you who are looking for these types of jobs, and identifying what the ideal team looks like, right? So that's another thing you should be thinking about, is how many painters do I want to staff on a job? Another thing is that I ran into was identifying what type of jobs to take. So these are some challenges that I ran into, some questions that I had in business, even basic questions like, how do I run payroll? How do I, get, what insurances do I need? All of these things were big questions for me that I had no clue about when I first started. So initial success. So early on, one of the key components was getting leads. You need to understand that at the end of the day, no one knows who you are when you start your business, but there are people buying paint jobs, right? So you're entering into a NASCAR race, right? And that NASCAR race is going full speed and you decide to enter into that race. Now, at first you're going to go slow, but ideally you're going to look at the big guys and say, I'll never get that fast. And you can't think that way. The idea is that you need to think, okay, what are they doing? How did they get there, and how can I get up to their level? And the first thing I did was I Googled the companies in my area, and I wanted to see how many reviews they had and what the reviews were saying and what are the bad reviews. I even looked up the bad reviews of some of the companies to see what customers are saying. And I kind of tried to model the good things, and I tried to build my business around straying away from the bad things. And one of the things I noticed was that the biggest company in my area only had 30 Google reviews. So I said, okay, well, that's attainable. All I have to do is 30 jobs this year and I can easily be neck and neck with him. So that was a big focus for me, was to get Google reviews. And early on, I knew how valuable Google was. I knew that this was something that I wanted to make a focus. So getting reviews was the big key component for me, but getting leads, you can't get reviews without leads. So early on, there was Home Advisor. Obviously, Home Advisor is now Angie Leads. You have probably heard of this program. Whatever your thoughts are about it, erase the thinking. The idea behind this is you need to understand that leads are just people. How they get to you doesn't matter. They're just people, and people need to be sold. Now, in car sales, I would sit in a back office by myself with a stack of papers. These were called leads, and all these were people who came into the service department and ultimately got an oil change within the last 6 months. And I was expected to call them and get them into the dealership to sell them a car. Okay, so the difference between that and somebody that actually goes through a questionnaire on Angie Leads saying that they want the exterior of their house painted and they're requesting the service is entirely different, right? So for me, that sped up the curve of activation, right, of someone who's cold to someone who's warm. So these were like warm leads to me. These are people that are interested in the service, which means half of the work is done. The people who I was calling in the car dealership, I had to activate them, right? They were not in the market for a car, so I had to do the work of getting them in the market to buy a car, and then I had to get them warm enough to get into a car. That's a lot of work to do. And ultimately, the chances of doing that is really slim. So when I heard about Home Advisor, I was like, I'm in, because I understand leads, but I also understand that if I get in front of somebody, my natural ability to sell and, build trust with someone is going to kick in, whether I'm good at painting or not. I can promise somebody and look them right in their eye and say, hey, you know what? I promise you, we will do a great job. And I rode the wave of that early on. Ultimately, I told people we're new, but guess what? There will be no better company when it comes to customer service than us. And this helped me win big. This helped me get people to say yes, even though we had 1 or 2 reviews. It was risky. And I really had to outsell our value. And guess what? When it came time to it, I had the same issues you might deal with, which is people not showing up. But guess what? I was there. If someone didn't show up, guess what? I knew how to spray. I would spray what needed to be sprayed. I would do what needed to be done, and I wouldn't leave until it was done. Okay, so those are some early challenges. And the big lesson I got from maybe the first 6 months of running my business was really, at the end of the day, it's okay not to know everything. And it's also okay to make mistakes. I think, we don't want to ruin our reputation online. A lot of people are scared to make mistakes. The best way to get through adversity in the first 6 months of your business is honesty and integrity. You can't deny it. Do not do the blame game, right? There were plenty of instances where customers were upset with us because of the conduct of our team on site, right? The bad habits that people would bring to our work site because I did a poor job vetting them, and they would bring those bad habits to the work site, right? Smoking cigarettes, near the house and leaving the cigarette butts and things that happen, right? So for me, being able to take full accountability, have trust, convey trust and be integral helped me navigate all that, right? Because there were people that hired us that really wanted to see me win. They would give me feedback and say, listen, I can tell you're really trying, so I'm giving you this feedback. And it's coming from a place of me caring. And I love those people. They really did. And they didn't go online and crush us. They just said, listen, what happened today is unacceptable, right? Like, we didn't pay for that. And I was willing to give money back. I was willing to do whatever I had to do to protect the reputation, because that reputation online is forever. And more importantly, keep my customers happy. So those are some lessons. So let's get into scaling the business, right? So how did I get from $0 to $1 million a year annually? All right. So let me make this simple. If you are a house painting company, it's a numbers game. It's a law of averages. I can't emphasize this enough. The more leads you get, the more estimates you'll do. The more estimates you do, the more jobs you sell. And of course, the more jobs you sell, the more you can produce, right? So there's this kind of like dilemma that happens in between the lead and of course the job, right? And that dilemma is the fulfillment that occurs. And that fulfillment is the most important component of a service-based business, your team. Like, you are selling quality individuals, right? Like, yes, we are a painting company and we'll come paint your home, but the reason people hire us is because they know that they're getting good people who care, which is it's not a commodity. That is a rarity in our industry. So maybe you're seeing that. Maybe you're like, you know what? I see an opportunity here because I know that the standard's really low. Now, it's not just easy pickings because the standard's low. That just means that, a lot of people have been burned in this home service space, right? By people who have stolen deposits, who have not kept promises. So you kind of go into it like the customer's like this, like when you're walking in the door, right? Like, go ahead, prove to me that you're not going to screw me. So for me, like, that was the key component, is understanding that, like, when you're scaling a business, like, you have to boil down like how to do that, which is of course being able to produce the end result. But more importantly, it's putting together the system to allow you to scale and timing it right? So, to get to $1 million, right, you have to understand like the numbers required to get there. And those numbers are, how many leads do I need? How many jobs do I need to do per week, per month, per year to get there, right? But the key is early on is to not focus on the $1 million. It's to focus on building the vehicle that will help you get to $1 million. And that takes time, right? So, look, it took me like 3 years to get to $1 million in revenue comfortably, to the point where we didn't like go nuts trying to get there. It was 3 years of learning how to hire, learning how to convert leads to estimates and estimates to sales and produce quality work, learning how to market and which marketing channels work. Like, this is a learning experience. So to be honest with you, I don't really want you to focus on getting to $1 million. That's cool, right? Getting to the million, but really, like, how did you get there? Was it a war, or was it systemized? Was it something that you could do again? Was it something that you can build on, right? So first thing is leads. Again, I'll allude to this, understanding that you cannot scale a business unless you get leads. So you need a marketing agency, or you need to pay for leads, right? You're going to pay for leads, whether it's through your own time or whether it's through someone else's time, right? So your time as a business owner is the most valuable thing you have, right? Because your time is spread in so many different directions. So anytime you can allocate something else or delegate a responsibility in your business, like marketing, to something else, do it. That's what needs to be done, because ultimately there's another thing waiting for you to do, right? So when I coach business owners, the first thing I'm telling them is like, how are you getting leads? And there's this thing that happens in the industry where people say, well, I get leads from word of mouth. And that's like something that they boast about. And it's like, nah, man, that's not a good thing, because there's nothing predictable about word of mouth. You need a predictable lead revenue stream. Like, there has to be predictability. You need to take money, put it into the machine, pull the lever, and get leads out. And that's why I was attracted to Home Advisor, because I would just put in money, and each day I would get a lead. It'd say Joe Smith wants an exterior house painting job. And I would go like this and call them and pick up the phone and begin the process of converting Joe to an appointment and building value on the phone, right? So without leads, you don't have the confidence to hire. Now, you might be in this position right now. You might be thinking, well, I can't hire, Tanner, because I don't have leads. Okay, well, guess what? Obviously, you need to pick which one you're going to do first. I would prefer to have leads before I have people, right? But I can't wait too long, right? You can't get a bunch of leads, because what will happen is you'll eventually start selling the jobs and you won't have the people to fulfill the work. then guess what happens? You wind up doing the work, and then you still got the leads coming in, and you don't follow up with them because you know that you can't handle the jobs anyway, and then you lose a bunch of money, make a bunch of people upset. So as a business owner, you have to look at both, and you got to say, okay, well, I need leads and I need people. You can't be doing the work, right? That's the default. You're not allowed to do the work. You have to connect supply and demand. That's your job, is to get the leads, turn the leads into sales, and then fulfill the promises of the sale. That's how scaling happens. And the faster you do that, and obviously when you build your business, the more you'll be able to do that on a daily basis. That's how you scale a business. So the first thing you should be doing is thinking, where am I going to get people to click a button and go through a form and request an estimate from me? I'll tell you, there's a bunch of ways, right? So Facebook ads are one. HomeAdvisor and Angie List, right? Those are lead aggregators. That's two. And Google is three. So these are the big three right now that you should be aware of, right? So I want to go through them real quick. So Facebook, if you have Facebook, okay, guess what? You need to understand that you're not a Facebook expert, or else you'd have an agency right now. You are a contractor. Do not try to do this on your own. It is a good investment to hire someone else to take the burden off of you. Now you might say, well, I don't have the money for it. Okay, find the money, because it's one of the best investments you can make if someone else does it for you. The ROI is insane, especially if we're talking house painting, right? You can have a budget of $2,000 on Facebook, and guess what? Most average house painting jobs are between $4,000 and $6,000. So that means you need one job to cover the entire cost for all of your ads for the entire month, right? That's how you need to start thinking, is you got to have the investor mentality, is I take money and I put it into something that grows the money, okay? And that is a marketing agency to run Facebook ads for you. Now, let me help you understand the difference between a Facebook lead and a, for example, Google lead, okay? So remember we talked about earlier, I talked to you about my experience calling leads in the car dealership who are leads, but they're not really leads. They're just people who wanted an oil change and they came into our dealership, okay? So that means I had to take them from not interested to interested. That is a lot of work. And if I did that, that means that that person is really qualified, right? Because they're interested because of me and nobody else. Follow me here. Guess what? Google. When someone goes on Google and looks up house painting, they're already interested. That means that they really already decided, hey, I need to get these walls painted. And chances are they already decided how much they're willing to pay. Okay? So that's a good thing, right? And when you decide to advertise on Google, that means that you're capitalizing on the fact that Google already did the hard work for you. And it's the same thing with Angie Leads and HomeAdvisor. They already did the hard work for you. Some way or another, Google as the brand built trust in a way that gets that customer to go to Google for an answer. Hello, same thing with Angie and HomeAdvisor. They built trust with their brand that they paid for and did the sweat equity for, to where someone goes there to put in their request, and guess what? You get to capitalize on that brand awareness that Angie spends millions of dollars every single month building and building and building and building and building, okay? So you're riding the wave of another brand. Now, Facebook, a little bit different. People usually don't go to Facebook for their services. That's not a normal practice, okay? Well, guess what? With your ads, your job is to take someone from not interested to interested. Now, you could get lucky. You could get someone that's interested, and then because they verbally spoke about painting, now they start to see painting ads, right? The algorithm's getting really good, but chances are you're going to get someone interested to work with you through using education or entertainment in an ad, okay? So you put out an ad, it says, hey, my name's Tanner. I own Premium Painting. This is my crew. This is what we do. Someone might look at that and say, you know what? I've been wanting to get my house painted for years. I guess I could get a quote from this company, right? Now that person isn't as motivated as the person who went on Google, who chances are they already decided that they want something done. So that might mean that this person is going to need more nurturing, is going to need a little bit more of a kick, might need to be followed up with longer, right? Because the motivation is low, right? So this is a little bit deeper of a topic, but when you understand how people make buying decisions, that's how you can scale, because it's almost like you can predict outcomes and you can put your money in places that generate you different results. Okay, so that is probably one of my biggest points on scaling is understanding leads. You can't scale without leads. Second, niching down. Okay, house painting, real quick. I want you to understand that like there's 100 different things that we could do as house painters that people ask us to do. Install doors, remove popcorn ceiling, do drywall, remove wallpaper, remove flooring, remove gutters. Like, people think just because we're house painters that we can literally make magic happen. And generally speaking, we probably could. But I'm all about building brand. One thing that I want you to understand when you scale a business is I want you to build it as if you're going to sell it. Okay, so that means that you're selling a pristine brand, and that brand can easily get damaged if you start taking on things that aren't your expertise. Go to Starbucks and ask for a filet mignon. Next time you're at a coffee shop, go to Starbucks, ask for a filet mignon, and guess what they're going to tell you? They're going to say no. They have a menu, and that menu is designed from corporate ultimately to optimize and make efficient the processes within that building, because they understand that they're really good at doing one thing, and that's making coffee. Now, they have some accessory things, but guess what? Those things can be easily popped in a microwave, okay? And you're out the door. It's all about speed. It's all about speed. That's how you scale. So if I'm given a house painting job and the customer wants me to remove popcorn ceilings, that's gonna slow us down, and that's gonna prevent us from doing another house painting job. That's gonna stress out my team, and ultimately the $3,000 or whatever that they're gonna pay us to do it is not worth the headache. It's never worth it. So you have to have a standard when it comes to niching down. You have to say no. That's a key component to scaling a business. You can't do everything. Let someone else get it, because ultimately you're going to learn the hard way that taking on things outside of your core expertise is not the move. You have to let your team do the same things over and over. I want you to know something. I'm 8 years into this. We are still learning the best way to do exterior and interior painting. It's all we do. No cabinets, nothing. And really the reason why is because I don't want the stress. I don't want to deal with it. And I don't want to have to retrain people on doing things to the same standard that we're expected to do house painting. We've been doing house painting for 8 years. If I take on a cabinet refinishing job, the customer's going to expect us to be that same company, and we're not. We just don't have the practice. We don't have the system. We don't have the workshop. We don't have the sales process. We don't have the tools. We don't have the experience of failure of what to do when things happen. And I'm speaking from experience. So niche down. All right, number 3, automating. Okay. Guess what, guys? Automation. You can't do it all. You need a good software. So a little bit about Drip Jobs. If you don't know, I'm the founder of Drip Jobs. Drip Jobs is a automation CRM. There's thousands of softwares out there, but there's a good reason why almost 2,000 businesses use Drip Jobs. And the reason why is because automated communication is the foundation of any business relationship, okay? And it's only going to continue to lean that way. Whenever someone gets frustrated in a business relationship, it's simply because there was no communication. And there's so many stages for you as a business owner that your customer is going to go through, okay? So that's called your pipeline. And it's important for you to understand and identify where customers are in the buying process and in the jobs process, right? In the production process. And each one of those stages requires different levels of communication. I'm gonna give you an example. When we get a request from a customer, right, for a painting estimate over the phone, we're not sitting there writing down all their information, right? That's inefficient, and that's not gonna make someone think that you are that company that's gonna come in and do what you say you're gonna do and charge a premium price, right? No, they get entered into a form, and that form sends them an automatic email, automatic text message. It gets logged in our system, and then we can book the appointment after we review it, and the customer gets notified, and then they get a reminder sequence sent of when that appointment is. That is the automation component, and that allows you to scale. Essentially the same way you're going to be doing your projects in terms of house painting, right? You go in, if you have to paint a house, you probably prep it, you probably start masking things off, you probably start cutting in the walls and then rolling. Well, that system that you have in place is the same thing that your customers need to be going through before they hire you. So think about what your back-end system looks like. Highly encourage you to check out Drip Jobs. You could start your 14-day trial at dripjobs.com. All right, so how I hit 7 figures. Now, obviously, I gave you a bunch of different resources. I can't give you it all in just one YouTube episode, but I hope I got you a little bit fired up. This is really important. This is how you're going to break through whatever thinking you may have about how to scale. I'm sorry, but there's some truths here. Number one, you cannot be doing the work. You won't ever scale your business. So there's an element of risk involved. That risk is either going to be you investing in yourself to get the education you need from people that have already done what you're trying to do, or you simply just go all in and prepare to make the mistakes, which I don't really recommend, but it's a great way to learn. So what I'd love to do is I would love to invite you into my school community. I have courses, trainings, coachings, workshops, all within that school community. And you can access that in the description. It's school.com/dripjobs. And what that is, it's ultimately a community where you can connect with other like-minded business owners. There is a hiring course. There are business growth courses, mindset courses. There's house painting specific trainings in there that are going to help you take your business to the next level. So if you got some value out of this, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to check out the Contractor Secrets podcast. If you want to hear different trainings that I do, I offer free coaching for business owners. We record them. We put them live on the Contractor Secrets podcast. And of course, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you like and comment. Well, thank you very much. Good luck with your house painting business, scaling to 7 figures. I hope to see you in my school community. I hope to see you as a user of Drip Jobs. If you are starting a painting business, we have a startup program. So make sure you ask our team about the startup program. You get 120 days of Drip Jobs absolutely free. That's 4 months that you get to use the #1 most powerful software for painting business owners in your business for free. Can't beat it. Thank you, and I appreciate it. We'll see you on the next video.